Big LEZ'S League, an all rugby league experience.
Hello, welcome back to Big LEZ'S League and all rugby league experience. And make sure to go ahead and subscribe to the Big LEZ'S League YouTube, become a part of the Big LEZ'S League community. I haven't done this one for a while. They're around the league episodes. Obviously, been jam-packed with a bunch of other finals content and getting interviews organised for the off-season. So we've been jam-packed with that, plus work, plus all other commitments as well. Haven't had a chance to have a good enough, or there hasn't really been enough news either to record one of these news podcasts. So the fact that we've just had a jam-packed week of news, had a little bit of spare time, I thought that I would cram in and around the league news podcast. Plenty to talk about. We're going to talk about the team lists going into week 2 of the finals. Since we haven't done a team list Tuesday or Wednesday in a while too, I thought that'd be good to get that one down. We're going to talk about Joseph TAPINE being named as the captain for next year already. Very early call there by Ricky Stewart, confirming that Joey TAPINE is going to be that leader. We'll talk about that in a second. Jazz Tevaga, his new landing spot, it seems as though it has been confirmed. We'll talk about that. Greg Alexander made some comments on Nicho Hynes, which we'll talk about as well. Trey Fuller, really bad injury, and it is going to really affect how the Dolphins prepare for next season. And then Clint Gutherson, his new role has been confirmed as well. So plenty to talk about in this podcast. Let's get straight into it. We'll start off with the team list. Going into week 2 of the finals, the Sharkies taking on the Cowboys. You'd already know my thoughts and thinking around this game. If you did go and watch Finals Foresight, that video will be linked right at the end of this one. So make sure you go ahead and watch that after this. 2 videos coming out today as well, by the way, around the league. We're also going to be taking a look into the next few weeks as the Pacific Championships get closer and closer. Clarkie's put together his very, very early, predicted sides, based off the past few weeks of footy. We're going to take a look at those. A few rogue options there. We're going to talk about who we would pick in certain positions as well. So make sure you go ahead and get into that podcast. This one will come out at 4 p.m. That one's going to come out, I think, around 6 p.m., but we'll confirm. Anyway, let's focus on this. Finals, week 2. Let's get into these team lists. Sharkies and Cowboys. In terms of changes going into this week, Jesse Ramian is listed among the reserves as he looks to return from the ankle injury that ruled him out of the game against the Storm. Ramian will be given until later in the week to try and prove his fitness, but for the moment, the Sharks will go with the same 17 as week 1 of finals. Braden Hamlin-Uele is listed as 18th man. As for the Cowboys, coach Todd Payton has the luxury of naming the same 17 that he got the job done in the sudden death showdown with the Knights. Jackson Purdue is listed as 18th man after Thomas McKaylee filled in that role in week 1 of finals. Chad Townsend, Braden Burns, and Tom Chester are part of the extended squad. So pretty similar teams going into this weekend that we saw last week. Obviously, the Sharkies going with the same side as well. No injuries there is always good. Atkinson at the 14. We love to see it. We'll talk about HYNES and all that sort of drama in a second, but just looking at these team lists, I think it is going to be a very interesting game. I just feel like the Cowboys are a lot further ahead of where the Sharks are right now. And look, if you watched Finals Foresight, you'd know all my thoughts on this game and how I think it's going to go. So I won't leave any spoilers for you. We're just going through the team list here. So make sure if you want to go and know my thoughts going into this week of finals, to go over and watch Finals Foresight. But in regards to the team list, just talking about some of the players here, I think that Britton Nicola, he's been in sensational form. This battle between himself and Halem Lukey this week, I think, is going to be first class. Both of these guys in some pretty terrific form. Halem Lukey not having the 10 tackle bust that he did the week prior, still had about 4 or 5 in there. Definitely very effective on that left-hand side. Defensively has been very solid as well. I'm hearing there's a little bit of doubt around Jeremiah Nanai with a shoulder injury. Defensively hasn't been the best towards the back end of the year, especially after Origin. But I think attacking wise, he is such a threat going up against T. Wilton here. If he does end up playing, whether it's off a kick or if a beautiful cutout pass, he runs lines so well. Attacking wise, he's great. Defensively, there's a few issues there for me. If he does get ruled out, In terms of the guys they've got here on the bench and who they've got in the reserves, I think Kulekefu Finefuiaki comes in. He's the number 16 at the moment. In terms of who comes onto the bench for him, wouldn't shock me if Jackson Purdue joins the bench. That's what they've done in the past when they've had these late injuries. They have that utility there in Purdue. They can play a number of positions. If there's any injuries in the back line or just as a 14 sort of role, come on, we'll play the last few minutes, give some of those experienced guys a rest, which, to be honest, even if we do get to game time and, Nanai does play, I feel like Purdue is still a chance to come onto the bench because you're going to go into a very tough game, a must-win game the following week, assuming that the Cowboys do beat the Sharks. They go into a very tough game the following week. If the Cowboys do get a pretty decent lead, it would be nice to have a Purdue on the bench that can come on for a Clifford or a Dearden or a Drinkwater. He can play a number of positions there, so maybe that is a guy that comes onto the bench towards game time. But yeah, look, obviously Purdue's there. He would come in. Tom McKayle's another one, obviously listed there in the reserves. I think that he will definitely be up for consideration here, obviously, for the bench if we do see Nanai ruled out late with that shoulder injury. But Nanai, is a bit of concern there around him. Doesn't say it on the NRL up, but just rumours-wise, there has been a little bit of concern around him and a bit of an injury that he's been carrying for the past few weeks. Someone that I've been really impressed with that I think is, definitely a chance next year to keep his spot. And that's saying something. You got Labour, Tom Chester that will be fighting for that spot during the off-season as well. I think that Viliami Vaila has impressed me out of sight. I feel like he is a guy that, as I said, can keep his spot going into the preseason. If he has a big enough preseason, I think he keeps that spot. What I've seen from him throughout the year, he's been there for majority of the year. I think since around 10 or 11 he's been there. So I think that he'll keep his spot going into next year, especially if he has a really solid final series. But definitely a story to remember. Obviously, not getting a start at the Warriors, goes to the Cowboys, and now he's the starting center in first grade. A trajectory we didn't really expect here at Big LEZ'S League. We sort of said that he'd be sitting in and around the ranks to come in if there was injury throughout the year. Obviously, the injury cloud, and obviously with Peter Hiku going to the Super League, there's been plenty of opportunity for him there. I just really feel like he's flourished, and we'll talk about it more in the season review, which is content coming up after the grand final, a week or so after the grand final. But yeah, definitely a guy that we'll be talking about during that period. If the Sharks win this game, it is going to be off the back of their backline. Katoa, Ronaldo Mulatalo, Talakai, Ito, these guys doing great work out of their own end. I feel like defensively, we sort of spoke about it before the game too last week for the Sharks against the Melbourne Storm. Talakai defensively, moving over to the opposite side of the field. Attacking wise, didn't have any trouble. Obviously, passing wise, and that flick pass that he set up for Siona Katoa, outstanding. Just defensively, there is a few issues there. Did get caught out a few times, defending out of position. Howarth had a field day going down that edge as well at centre. I just feel like he's got to shore himself up defensively if he is the guy. Obviously, Raymond's a big chance of coming back, so we might see that change. But yeah, definitely one to keep an eye on there. CSC for Talakai. I feel like Valentine Holmes has a big opportunity to make a statement here in this final series against Talakai if defensively he isn't as strong going into this contest. So they're the team list there for the Sharks and the Cowboys. A little bit of a preview there, just quietly too. We'll do the same for this next game. The Roosters are taking on the Manly Seagulls. In terms of changes for these sides, the Roosters, veteran prop Jared Warrior-Hargreaves is back from suspension in a huge boost for the Roosters, while Victor Radley, he's part of the extended squad. I'm hearing that they will give him the rest of the week, similar to what we heard with, obviously, Jesse Ramian. They're just going to give him the week. They're going to see how he goes. Obviously, he will be returning from a fractured scapula, which he has avoided surgery on. I think that the big thing that I've heard amongst Roosters fans and, little sources that I have here and there is that he's a lot more confident than what the doctors are, and that's a bit of a scary thing, but it's exactly what you'd expect from Victor Radley as well. Victor Radley is a part of the extended squad and could make his return from a fractured scapula suffered in round 26. That's crazy too. A 2 or 3 game turnaround from that sort of injury where you're supposed to take the rest of the year off, get season-ending surgery, rehab that shoulder. That's insane. That's just who Victor Radley is. Nat Butcher goes back to the bench where where he's joined by Siwa Wong, Spencer Leniu, and Terrell May. Just confused the shit out of myself there. While Zach Docker-Clay is listed as 18th man. So interesting from the Roosters going without an 18th man for the moment. We could see that change. I think that if Radley comes in, he comes in via the bench. At least I'd be playing him off the bench. I just feel like they value him a lot more as a middle than what they do as an edge. I was impressed with Tupanua on the weekend against the Panthers. I thought that he was probably one of the better forwards for the Roosters. He got a lot of go forward. Him and Nafa'u White, I thought, were probably the best forwards for the Roosters against the Panthers. I think that Tupanua should keep his spot there on the edge. He runs great lines. He has a decent combination with Sandon Smith as well. I just feel like that Radley as well, going through the middle, the leg speed you're going to get off the bench, especially when you don't have a 14 there. I think that the Radley would be so valuable. You got Nafa'u White there at 13 at the moment as well. I just feel like they need a guy like Radley as well, came through the grades playing a bit of dummy half as well, just to have that skill set so we don't see Connor Watson having to play the full 80. Because I think against the Manly side, that's going to be tough and up for the contest through the middle of the park. It is just going to be a nightmare if they're going to have to play Watson there for 80 minutes, get him super fatigued, especially going into the following week, assuming the Roosters win against the Melbourne Storm. I just feel like that's the wrong play. I'd have someone that can cover that hooker position as well. So Radley offers that, but he also offers, as I said, leg speed, quick play the balls there through the middle, play him in that lock forward role when you don't have the luxury without a 14 to play Connor Watson in that role. Connor Watson's going to have to play close to the 80 there, if not the full 80, if Victor Radley doesn't come onto the bench come game day in that number 9 position. So definitely worthwhile having a Radley come into the side to play those sort of roles. I just feel like they need him in there. As for the Seagulls, winning form is good form. So Manly roll out the same 17 that stormed home to beat the Bulldogs. Winger Jason Saab remains sidelined after missing the past 2 games with an ankle injury. Fullback Tom Trbojevic will be better for the run after returning from a shoulder injury on Sunday. Toa Sipley and Corey Waddell are listed among the reserves, along with the 18th player. My ability to read the English language is severely suffering here. Clayton Faulalo, obviously there at 18th man as well. I just feel like they also need a 14. I think it's unfair. People forget Croker's only just come back from severe concussions. It's kept him out for majority of the year. He's only just come back from that like 3 or 4 weeks ago. I just feel like they should have a bit of cover there, or at least a 14 that can come on and just generate a bit of leg speed there through the middle. They've got a pretty mobile pack off the bench. I'll give them that. It's Ben Trbojevic, Josh Aloiai, Ethan Bullimore, and Nathan Brown. We saw how quick Ethan Bullimore was on the weekend against the Dogs. Ben Trbojevic has got a bit of pace there, played a bit of centre, but can also obviously have that ball skills there on that left edge. We saw some beautiful ball skills from him. He runs really well. He's very mobile, quick leg speed, good play the balls. Ben Trbojevic is a gun. Nathan Brown's just a little nugget there that's got a bit of leg speed as well and just hits like a freight train. LIA is pretty much your only genuine front rower there on the bench. In saying that, I just feel like they should potentially have a bit of cover. And look, he's only played 1 game of first grade, but Jamie Humphreys, I wouldn't mind having that bit of cover there on the bench, especially if the Roosters come game day bring in Zach Docker-Clay back into the side as well. I don't know who for, but if they do bring him back in, I'd just love to have that cover there of Jamie Humphreys. And as I said, if this goes the complete opposite way of what we think and the Manly Seagulls pump the Roosters, Tom Trbojevic comes out and has a blinder, I think that it'd be nice to, again, as we said for the previous game, have a guy like Humphreys that can come on for DCE, for Brooks, potentially for Turbo if you want to move the side around a little bit, but just someone that can come on and cover a few positions. So if you do want to rest those guys, and even just giving Croker a little bit of a rest and not forcing him to play the full 80 every week, I think would be a good idea, even if it's just for this game, just to have that cover there, or someone that does have a bit of experience, like a Gordon Chen Kumtong, not too much experience, but a lot more experience at the moment than what Humphreys has. I'd probably bring one of those guys onto the bench and just have that cover there instead of just rolling out the full forward bench. I feel like Roosters are going to do the same, but we'll obviously see in the coming days. In regards to a little mini preview here, how I think this game is going to go, I just feel like the Roosters are going to get it done. I feel like if Tom Trbojevic isn't 100%, the Roosters win. I feel like Manu, Young, those guys are going to have some big weeks and make a statement. I think the forwards need to make a statement off the back of the return of big Jared Warrior-Hargreaves here, especially after being dominated for a full 40 minutes. I'd even say 60 minutes because the last 20 minutes of the second half as well, they started to get dominated again. There was only a 20-minute period, I guess, in that game where the Roosters looked like they were generating a bit of momentum and flowed nicely. But I feel like the forwards, no matter how the game went, and when the Roosters had momentum, it cannot be understated that the forwards got dominated when Jared and Fisher, when James Fisher Harris and Moses Leota were on the field for Penrith, the Penrith Panthers won 26-0. So just goes to show how dominant that pack was. Isaiah Yeo is a big part of that as well. I really do feel like they just need to make a statement here, the Roosters. Hey, we're still here. We're still contenders, like we said in the finals foresight. And they need to make a statement here. And as I said, that's going to be off the back of Jared returning into this side. The physicality, from what we've seen from Lodge over the past 2 weeks, he's only played 2 games of football this season. He's probably been Manly's most aggressive forward there through the middle, especially that game against the Dogs. He was outstanding. Hamole Olakawatu going up against Angus Crichton. This battle is going to be legendary. It's going to be a big factor as to who wins this game. Angus Crichton got dominated for the first time this season for me. Had some really nice runs and tried to get himself back in the game. But also, Panthers pressured him so much. He was doing stupid offloads. He was making poor decisions in attack. And he wasn't generating a lot of momentum, in tackles either, which, as I said, it's the first time for me that I've seen that from him this season, in a big season for him. He's got to make a statement here against Hamole. And Hamole's been absolutely cracking blokes in defence. He's got to make a big statement here against Hamole. I think that he can do that. Look, as I said, for me, I don't think Manly win without a fully fit Tom Trbojevic. You're obviously not going to get a fully fit Tom Trbojevic. I'm taking the Roosters in that one, as said in finals foresight. Let's get into the news for this week. We're already 20 minutes in, so hope you enjoyed that 20-minute little preview there. Captain TAPINE, Joseph TAPINE, obviously the captain of the Canberra Raiders. Huge signing, huge for him. And I think it's great that they've sort of gotten this out of the way, before the preseason as well. He's the leader in that side. Everyone knows it, particularly with the performances that he's had this season. He's probably been their best player too, consistently throughout the year. He doesn't get the raps he deserves, particularly because he does this every single week. He has big games every single week, Joey Tapine. He gets 150 to 200 meters a week. He just dominates through the middle, tackle bust galore, tackles galore. He's a gun. He's an absolute gun, and he doesn't get the flowers he deserves because it's just the norm for him now. He does this every single week. So definitely deserves to be given his flowers there, Joey Tapine. He deserves this as well, obviously with Rapana leaving the club into next year, going to Hull KR. It's a great opportunity to make Tapine the captain, the leader through the pack. And as if he wasn't the leader in the pack already, Joey Tapine, congratulations to him. I think it's a great move for the Raiders. And obviously, once they get that out of the way, they know who the big dog is already, but they know for sure now going into this preseason as well. There's not a build-up throughout the preseason. No one's wondering about it. It's sorted. It's Joey Tapine, and they can get on with their football and their process throughout the preseason and focus on their football. Next update, Jazz Tevaga. He goes to the Manly Seagulls, it sounds like, his new landing spot. It gave us a little bit of a clue in one of the previous videos on the Instagram of the Warriors page, doing a little bit of an interview with him before that last game, Sean Johnson's last game against the Sharks. They did an interview with Jazz Tevaga. He said, where I'll be going is going to be a lot warmer. Gave a little bit of a clue. We thought it was going to be a Queensland side. But it is the Manly Seagulls. Apparently, this deal is done, yet to be announced by the Manly Seagulls, but apparently the deal is set in stone, done. He is signed there, reported as well by Channel 9. So it sounds like it is set in stone. Great signing for Manly. Really great signing for Manly. I think they've identified that they can have a guy that can go into hooker in Jazz Tevaga as well if Lachlan Croker needs it. But if they want to go for that all-forward bench, he's a guy that you can include in your plan, in your 17 week to week, regardless of what that plan is going to be. He can play in the middle. He can play like a roaming lock, link man sort of role there at 13. He can also play a bit of hooker at 9. It sort of gets me thinking as well, does he go into 13 and they move Jake Trbojevic into the front row permanently and have him as a bit more of a battering ram there? I'm not too sure. Maybe I'm reading a little bit too far into it, but regardless, I think it's a great signing for Manly. What you're going to get out of Jazz Tevaga is a guy that puts 110% in. Bit of a vet as well. I'm really looking forward to seeing how he goes there at the Manly Seagulls. I think it's a great signing. As I said, can cover hooker as well if they need to give Lachlan Croker a little bit of a spell. I think he's definitely in their 17. He provides experience. Go forward. They've got a real mongrel pack off the bench. Jazz Tevaga, Nathan Brown, Ethan Bullymore, Josh Aloiai, these sort of guys. I think that is a mongrel pack. And I think, as I said, he's going to be a consistent first grader in this Manly side. It does sort of push back Gordon Chen Kum Tong, his development a little bit. Obviously, they're losing Jamie Humphries to the South Sydney Rabbitohs, so it doesn't make too much difference there for him. But in regards to Gordon Chen Kum Tong, it really just pushes him down the pecking order. I'm really keen to see what, when he comes off contract, which will be interesting to sort of look up here as well. I might even see if I can find it on Zero Tackle, but it does push him back in the pecking order a bit. And I'm very keen to see when he does come off contract, what the decision for him is going to be. Does he potentially seek a deal away from the Manly Seagulls? His deal's over at the end of 2025, so he's free to negotiate November 1. I am very keen to see what Gordon Chen Kum Tong does. Per Zero Tackle, it sounds like he's off contract November 1. I don't know if he's re-signed recently. Sometimes they update it a little bit later. But definitely one to keep an eye on there with Jazz Tevaga coming in, taking that 14 jersey. Does Gordon Chen Kum Tong sit back and go, hey, hold on, wait, my, I guess, opportunity for first grade, it's pretty much closed the door on that unless there's injury in that number 9 role. And even then, I'm probably not going to get a starting spot because Jazz Tevaga is going to be taking that starting 9 anyway. So, I think that there's definitely a bit of a thought process there for Gordon Chen Kum Tong, and I think he'll definitely assess his options. Regardless, I think that a lot of teams are sorted now for 9. I really don't think that he is going to get a spot regardless at most other teams, unless it's going to be that 14 sort of role. And even then, just as a depth guy, I feel like that's what Gordon Chen Kum Tong is going to be for the next few years. You've got a few vets like Damien Cook, but obviously they've got Jacob Little there. You got, just trying to think off the top of my head, some vet hookers at the moment in footy sides. Up in Coruscant, the Tigers, I guess there's an opportunity there. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Jake Simpkins obviously gone to the Manly Seagulls as well, so that's another guy that's going to be in front of Gordon Chen Kum Tong. I mean, the Tigers could be realistically probably the only side where there's potential for him to get a start somewhere. But even Talon Silva's there. So, I mean, that pushes him back again. So, yeah, there's not too many clubs at the moment that need a hooker. And even the vet hookers have already someone there in the 14 to, I guess, learn off and be mentored off as well. So, yeah, it's a bit of an interesting one. It pushes him back. Does he leave the Manly Seagulls? Does he re-sign? We'll have to see Gordon at Chen Kum Tong. But in regards to Jazz Tevaga, I think it's a great signing. I think he's going to do very well there. And I'm looking forward to seeing him in Manly colours in 2025 if it's confirmed by Manly. Greg Alexander, I've got the article up here. He made some comments regarding Nicho Hynes after the game against the Melbourne Storm. I'm just going to read out to you the article here from Channel 9. We'll go through it a little bit as well and then move on to the next thing. But it says here, rugby league legend Greg Alexander says he would drop $1 million halfback Nicho Hynes from the Cronulla Sharks team for this week's must-win semi-final. And former coach Phil Gould says the embattled playmaker must channel Shane Warne. Shane Warne. It's very dribbly there from Phil Gould. In order to shake a horror finals hoodoo that has plagued the Shire Folk in recent years. The team is on the brink of losing an 8th straight finals game. It still hasn't won. He still hasn't won one, it should say, since inheriting the number 7 jumper, losing 2 in 2022 and won last year before Saturday's 37-10 defeat in Melbourne. Here are the quotes here from Greg Alexander. It says here, he's their marquee man and they're $1 million player. The performance against the Storm over the weekend was not good. Braden Trindle and Daniel Atkinson have been doing a good job as the halves pairing, and then Nicho Hynes came back into the side. There now has to be serious questions about whether Nicho Hynes gets a start. I would personally go with Trindle and Atkinson. If Coach Craig Fitzgibbon says to Hynes that he isn't their man for this game, then that's saying he has no faith in him being their man for next year or the year after that. Hynes can play footy, but he's lacking something, and that's confidence. I believe that might be Phil Gould, potentially. If he is hesitant at the moment, he needs to go back to 2022 and last year and watch how he used to play. Hynes was on one of the best halfbacks in the NRL over an 18-month period after joining Cronulla from Melbourne on a lucrative deal. There you go. That's the article. Interesting stuff. I don't think they've really mentioned that. I think it switches over to Phil Gould when he says, Craig Fitzgibbon says that Hynes isn't their man. There's no faith in him being the man next year. I feel like that's Phil Gould. But anyway, just on that article, I think that why would you want to drop Nicho Hynes when he's going to be the man moving forward? If he's your marquee man, he's on $1 million. He's the guy you put in the number 7 jersey, and that's the end of it. You look at the form from 2023 and 2022. You look at how good he was playing during those seasons. I just don't understand. It's like Alexander's a little bit unaware that, Hynes has just come back from a pretty serious injury. Yes, before that, the form wasn't great. But you look at the year that he's had as well. Obviously, pretty much since the Origin talks had started, he just felt the world of pressure on him. Then obviously game 1 happened and it wasn't the best performance from him. People forget as well, not only was it his first time playing 7 for the Blues, but it's his first time playing 7 ever, right, in a representative team. Not only that, it's his first time playing 7, or it's his second or third year playing full-time 7 in a rugby league side as well. He came through the grade more as a 6, and obviously played a lot of fullback in the outside backs from Melbourne as well. It's his first time really being a out-and-out number 7 in a club. He's mainly been a 6 coming through the lower grades, played a 7 here and there, but, reserve grade even compared to first grade is a completely different venture as well. So I just think that's a little bit unfair from Greg Alexander. You look at the year that he's had, and then the back end of the year, the injury. The suicide thing, obviously, when he saved someone from jumping off the side of a bridge. There was a full story there. Just hectic when you're going through such a really complicated injury. Not only that, but he's rushed his recovery to come back and play finals for his team. He's had a huge year, Nicho Hynes. He's had a massive year, and the mental resilience that he's shown to come back as early as he has, to come back for his side. I mean, we were talking about Hynes being out for the rest of the year. The Sharks, not going well in finals because he's out. I feel like you've got to give Nicho Hynes a little bit of time to come back. I also think as well, when he came back, let's not understate it. He came back for the first game for the Sharks as a 6, not as a 7. He was playing 6 in that game, and he played more like a 6 as well. He played a lot off the back of what Trindle was doing in that team in that first game back only a few weeks ago. Then he goes into this game against the Storm. His role is now 7. Trindle was trying to play a little bit off him, but he was also trying to create his own thing. We said it at the start of the season that this is not a good combination because they are both halfbacks. Atkinson and Hynes would work well. Atkinson and Trindle we know works well. I feel like Hynes isn't the problem. What the problem is that we're playing 2 number 7s with conflicting ideas about how to run a rugby league football side as a 7. And as a result of that, they clash heads and it doesn't work. This is not Hynes' fault. This is a collective issue that these two need to sort out. And unfortunately, they don't have the time to sort that out because they're going into a finals game that's an elimination game. So, look, Personally, I think it's unfair. The criticism for Hynes, I think that he's got a lot of pressure on him right now to be the dude. And that's been the storyline of the whole season.
I mean, let's not forget what happened to Ashley Taylor at the Gold Coast Titans or Luke Brooks at the Tigers of recent. You know, both of these guys got the $1 million contract. They were told, you were the man, you're our seven, you're the guy moving forward. They got paid huge money. As a result of that, huge pressure gets put on their shoulders. And as a result, they can't handle it. They can't handle it. And yeah, I think this is just another case, really, of Ashley Taylor, Luke Brooks syndrome. I think that he's on the big contract. There's a lot of pressure. He's getting talked about for rep opportunities. It's a lot of pressure. 3 years ago, he was a utility for the Melbourne Storm. He's now the starting halfback in a Cronulla Sharks side, getting paid $1 million a season. It's a lot of pressure that has just been put on his shoulders, over a short amount of time. I just feel like he's sort of starting to feel a little bit of that, and it's affecting his football. For me, I don't think the answer is dropping Nicho Hynes. I feel like the answer is seeing how you go in this game. If you lose, you lose, which I think is going to happen against the Cowboys, who are flying at the moment anyway. I think that, if they lose, they lose. If they do end up losing this game, have a big review session, and then going into the preseason next year, let's try and focus on taking a little bit of that pressure off Nicho Hynes and just letting him play his best football, and then playing off the back of Hynes if you're the six, whether that be Trindle or Atkinson next year, just playing off the back of Nicho Hynes, not clashing heads, not having two halfbacks in there. I think that for me, that's the answer. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. Am I being a bit too sympathetic? I don't think so. I think that this is the thought of a lot of people, not only Sharks fans, but just people in rugby league sitting back, watching this. I think it's a very reasonable opinion here. I feel like it is Ashley Taylor syndrome, a little bit happening, and I feel like the Sharks have an opportunity going into this preseason to wipe that and avoid that. And look, if that means that Hynes isn't a $1 million player at the end of his next contract or going into his next contract, I think that's probably the play. And just take a bit of that pressure off him and allow him to play his best football. That's, for me, what I think the best, play is there for Hynes going into the future. But again, let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you think. Am I being, as I said, a little bit oversympathetic? I don't think I am, but let me know what your thoughts are on this situation. And Greg Alexander's comments. Do you think Hynes should be dropped? Personally, I cannot see a world where he is, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on the matter as well. Let's get into the last two updates, because I know we are running a little bit over time. TRAI Fuller apparently has done his ACL. Not apparently, it's been confirmed. He has done his ACL for the reserve grade side for the Redcliffe Dolphins on the weekend in Q Cup. It looked to be a very severe knee injury. There was no confirmation until today, or until yesterday. Obviously, we're recording this yesterday, but confirmation until yesterday that TRAI Fuller had done his ACL. They confirmed the injury. I think this does hurt the Dolphins going into next season. Obviously, for me at least, and look, I think a lot of people share this opinion, I think you've got to have all of these stars in the side at once. I feel like Hamaso Tabuai-Fidow has got to be in the team. I also think TRAI Fuller is going to be at the team. And if that means that TRAI Fuller is your fullback, it means TRAI Fuller is your fullback. But it disrupts that plan now that he's got this ACL injury. He's probably going to be out for the start of the next season as well, depending on the length of the rehab process. He's going to miss the entire preseason as well with that ACL injury and just focus really on his rehab. I think it's a massive, massive thing, and especially when you're looking at a Dolphins side and a Wayne Bennett, ex-Wayne Bennett team in the Dolphins. It is huge, absolutely huge to lose a guy like TRAI Fuller throughout the preseason as well. It just adds to that narrative. When sides lose Wayne Bennett, they start to struggle. This is just adding on to what is already going to be a tough season for next year for the Dolphins. It disrupts their plan. I think that the plan from Christian Wolf would be to play TRAI Fuller at fullback, to play Hamaso Tabuai-Fidow in the centres. Their best possible team is that, with obviously Herbie and Bostock. For me, I feel like that combination got broken up a little bit too soon. I like that combo. But obviously, if it's Herbie and Asako, they're equally as good together, and then have Hamaso and Bostock on that other edge. But I think that's their best team. They've solidified a backline now. They've got a bunch of signings and some great depth in the lower grades. They've got Avarillo as depth going into next year unless he plays 6. They've got as well Junior Tupou coming into the side. They've really got some outstanding depth, and I think that's going to help them going into next year if there's injury in and around the back line, but also in the forward pack, the guys they get back as well, and the guys that have blooded this year like Mason Teague, like some of the younger blokes, the forwards, Kurt Donahue as well. I know that one of them is going to the South Sydney Rabbitohs. His name, Lachlan Huebner, going over to the Rabbitohs as well. There's a few other ones that the name escapes me, but they've got some really young guys that they've blooded to through this Dolphin system. Wayne's done a great job at signing some younger guys. They've got some great depth going into next year. They get Gilbert and Flegler back. There are some positives in the negative, but in regards to the plan for Christian Wolf, if Fuller was the plan at fullback, it really hurts that plan going into next year because now you're going to be without your fullback for the entire preseason and the start of the next season as well. So wishing Trey Fuller all the best in recovery, but it really does hurt the Dolphins going into 2025. And then second last update here, actually, because we've got one more to talk about just quickly. But Gutho, obviously, there was a lot of conjecture about his role next season. Rumors started to spread that he was going to be playing 13. There was a quote, which I'm going to get now from Jason Rolls via our good friend Rugby League, who obviously posts some really good updates on his page and is usually very rarely ever wrong. But Jason Rolls has confirmed his position or the idea of where Gutho was going to be playing next season. The quote from Jason Rolls is, "I see him as a real good coverage for all positions really on the field, especially all our backs, and then at 13 and 9. He's willing to buy into it and wants to do it. I just think that we will be able to play differently to a lot of other teams when he's on the field." Interesting. This sort of gives me very, I guess, Tyron Wishart, Dylan Walker, Kurt Mann, Bailey Hayward sort of vibes, where he'll be playing that 14 role, coming on, playing a bit of roaming lock, but also potentially playing at starting 13, like a Connor Watson, and then potentially moving into hooker or into another role later in the game. If there's injury in the outside backs, he goes straight in. If there's injury at fullback, he obviously goes straight in there as well. What this also tells me is that Isaiah Youngie is coming in as the starting fullback without playing only playing one game of first grade as well, which is going to be very interesting. Obviously putting a lot of faith in the young guy. Looks like the plan, though, is that Gutho will be playing that roaming 13 sort of role. I don't mind it. I think that Gutho would kill it at any role he plays in this side. I mean, I think it'd be very similar to his days 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago. I would say 6, 5 years ago at the Parramatta Eels when he was playing 6. I think it'd be very similar to those days. Just, ball player through the middle, second 5'8", really helpful to guys like Dylan Brown and Mitch Moses. The only thing that sort of makes me a little bit hesitant on this, are there too many chefs in the kitchen now? You've got Isaiah Youngie, untested, unproven. There at fullback. Yes, he had a great debut, but you're asking a kid that's played one game of first grade to be a starting fullback going into the full year. It's a big test, and we'll have to wait and see how he goes. But then you've got, obviously, Moses, Brown, and Gutho all in the front line. If you've got Hands there at hooker, you'd assume, with Matt Arthur's not there anymore, but you've got Lussick probably coming off the bench. It's a lot of chefs in the kitchen. It really is a lot of chefs in the kitchen. I just feel like Gutho, he's done nothing wrong at fullback for me to move him at all. I just don't understand where the idea to move him would have come from. If it works, it's a masterstroke. If it doesn't, it's going to be like KP to 6, where we're all just sitting here scratching our heads saying, we knew that this was going to be strange. We knew that this probably wasn't going to work. At the same time, as I said, I feel like it's different for Gutho in the sense that he's just a competitor and a footballer. He'll play anywhere. He'll do well anywhere. I feel like he's just that sort of player. So for me, I'm just going to sit back and sort of see how this goes. As I said, if it works out, it is a real masterstroke from Jason Rolls. The last thing I do want to touch on here is Wayne Bennett. Sounds like he's addressed the South Sydney Rabbitohs playing group. Had a private discussion with Latrell Mitchell after their Dolphins game a few weeks back as well, but has addressed the team. A bit of a spray, some would call it. Apparently, he was just pretty firm, straightforward. He told them what he wanted from them next year, but it was a pretty straightforward sort of thing. Wayne Bennett's been looking after this, for the past few weeks while he's been a Dolphins coach. It just feels like at stages this season we've seen Christian Wolf take over that head coaching role. Obviously, when Wayne Bennett's gone over to do other things or when he doesn't want to travel long distances, we've seen Christian Wolf cover those games as the head coach stand in. So I feel like Wayne Bennett's been very smart. I feel like he's just said, Wolfie, you handle the side this year. I'm just going to sit back and do my thing and help out where I can. But obviously, once this signature was signed for South Sydney, it feels like he's been focusing a little bit on both. But now, obviously, fully invested to South Sydney going into the preseason. I feel like we're going to be really, really strong under a full preseason under Wayne. Everyone fit and healthy, knock on wood. Very excited to see how this spine lines up. We'll talk a little bit about it when we do the season review preview, but love that Wayne's already given a spray to the boys. He's been very firm about what he wants going into next year, and I love that for us. I think it's a great sign for South Sydney. Can't wait to see how we go next year. Let me know your thoughts on all of these updates. I know this one has been a bit of a long one. I love to have a bit of a long one shoved in there as well, just to really deep dive into all the news and updates going around the league. But let me know your thoughts in the comments on the YouTube or on the Spotify. There's comments on the Spotify as well, which you can leave. Subscribe to Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Get around us, become a part of the Big LEZ'S League community. We are growing and growing and growing. We want to continue that growth going into the preseason. It's been a tough year, obviously getting hacked the Instagram at the start of the year, having to rebuild pretty much throughout this season. We're looking to get those numbers back throughout the preseason and coming into 2025 strong, ready to go. So make sure you become a part of the Big LEZ'S League community. We'll see you guys in the next one.